The Frog Prince. This was my son's favourite fairy tale. In a way, this was my fairy tale as well. Only someone forgot to tell me that sometimes the ending can be the beginning. My husband was wonderful. Everything I was told the handsome prince would be, scooping you up in his arms and living happily ever after. In my case, though, as soon as our marriage, my prince started to turn into an ugly toad. I guess I was about 7 months pregnant with our first child when it happened, the first time that he picked me up and threw me across the room. I was stunned. Of course he apologised, saying it would never happen again, and I believed him. I needed to. And nothing did, not for over a year, and then things started happening more and more often. The worst part for me was knowing the effect it was having on our son, and this is what made me finally decide to do something about it. I guess it's been about 9 months since we separated, and we are starting to heal, but I know it's going to take a long time. I thought that if you loved each other, that everything would be fine. I didn't know that love can hurt. Anyway, he's left, but he hasn't left me alone, so I keep taking any step I must to make him leave me alone, because now I know and really believe that love doesn't hurt, never ever. So now, when my daughter wants to read a fairy story, I still read her The Frog Prince. Only this time I tell her that sometimes handsome princes can turn into ugly toads, but that if she's strong enough and believes in herself, that she can live happily ever after without the ugly toad. Sometimes when she asks me, "Mummy, why did Daddy turn into an ugly toad?" I say, "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know."
I have here a speech that I don't intend to give, because I think that today is worthy of something more than just a speech written for a minister to read. This time last year we celebrated Stop Domestic Violence Day, and just before that Jean Lennon had been killed by her loving, caring partner. Last weekend we had Irene Davis stalked and killed by a partner, and here we are still saying stop domestic violence. We have all the laws in place that will do it, and we are still having our women killed by men who purport to care for them. How much longer does this have to go on? I have the responsibility of this in this state, and I am desperately keen to make sure that the laws that we've got in place are being implemented to the betterment of women. We all know women who've been victims of domestic violence. We all know what they and their kids go through. It is buggery on earth. And we all know that unless we do something about it, not only will they be violated, we will lose another one between now and next year.
It's an honour to be up here today speaking on the occasion of Stop Domestic Violence Day. My wish is for a future where no such days as today are necessary, for a future free from murder and violence inflicted upon women and children. Having worked in this field for about 7 years or so, there are two phenomena that never cease to amaze me. One is the courage and tenacity of women who have allowed me the privilege of walking the road with them in their painful journey of escape from domestic violence. The second is the many ways in which we, as a society, are consistently failing women seeking safety from domestic violence. Each and every one of us is part of this struggle to end domestic violence against women and children. So if you are a member of the community, ask yourself in what way you are helping to maintain the system that perpetuates violence against women and stereotypes about different cultures and races. As long as you're not actively working against the systems that perpetuate violence against women, you are a part of the injustice. As someone in politics recently said, sitting on the fence has got to be an uncomfortable place.
Good morning everyone. I'm Donna and I'm a victim of crime survivor. I was once a kindergarten teacher living out west with my family when the man I loved and trusted physically assaulted me, threw petrol in my face, and then ignited me. This attack took place in my very own home in front of my children. I suffered full thickness burns to 65% of my body, including my entire face, ears, neck, shoulders, chest, both arms, hands, feet, both legs and feet. With lung damage as well, I was not expected to live. Well, that was 3 long years ago, and it's taken me all those years to be how you see me today. By my side are just 2 of the reasons why I refuse to die. My sons, Co and Bodine. My boys and I are here today with you to support the struggle of exposing this secret violence that has existed in our homes and it's been tolerated and accepted by society for far too long. Domestic violence. There is nothing domestic about it. This violence is one of the most terrifying kind, as it occurs in the sanctions of our own homes. It's committed by someone we know, love or trust, and it's usually witnessed by innocent eyes, our children. This devastating violence is a crime punishable by law. I urge anyone who may be in an abusive relationship to take action and to do something about it.
How much longer will it be before another woman dies at the hands of her violent partner who purports to love her? What stops our system from working to its potential? Why can't we stop domestic violence? Our job is to be a constant reminder to the community and to government. Our mission is to speak out about domestic violence, and we will not stop. Today, we are here to celebrate the community commitment to stop domestic violence. We call upon the government to use this moment in history to meet the challenge. And some of those challenges are forging relationships between the new council and the local domestic violence committees, supporting and resourcing those domestic violence committees, resourcing, enhancing and improving the police response to domestic violence, addressing the issues of concern to children who experience domestic violence, attending to the needs of women who have unique and special needs.
This is a struggle where you have to necessarily take sides. The side against violence, power and control by one gender against another. And if you're a service provider, then ask yourself how sensitively you are responding to women in needs of safety from domestic violence. Are you making an effort to understand their needs? Make it your business to know how to use the telephone interpreter service. Make it your business to know how and where to book an interpreter and how to conduct an interview in the presence of an interpreter. Stop passing the buck. If every one of us thought we were responsible for giving women, particularly women from non-English speaking backgrounds, the best level of service, if we were a society less tolerant of violence and more tolerant of ideas, cultures and ways of life different from our own, there would be a lot less tragedies. Start by questioning yourself, your agency. If you start with yourself, the process of change is much more manageable. Do you know which cultural groups live in the area you work in? Do you know what languages are spoken by them? Have you ever used a three-way phone? Do you know where to refer people if they need a bilingual worker or support from their own community organization? Is your agency a welcoming place for people from diverse groups? A poster here, a multilingual pamphlet there goes a long way in making us approachable for women from non-English speaking backgrounds. I'd like to end by expressing sincere admiration for the women who, against so many odds, still manage to show the courage to ask for help. I bow my head in respect. And for us here to make a pledge, to make it easier for the women who haven't yet asked for help. Thank you.
Where are the women, the stout-hearted women who fought for the vote with their might? Shoulder to shoulder and bolder, they marched for their freedom and rights. Chained to the rails, they were force-fed in jails, yet this courage and spirit shone through. Women of the past, we're proud to sing this song for you. Here are the women, the with the blood, sweat and tears, still we fight for the right to be heard. Women of Australia, raise your voices, shout the words. Older women! I have always worked, I've never shirked, I've given of my best to pass the use by test and tackle life with zest. Am I now to be seen as some suggest, a parasite or else a pest? I won't allow that rock to go unchallenged. I have won my case, tomorrow's sun, I'll not be left outside. I'll wear my age with pride, my rights will be denied. I have lived and worked and laughed and cried, I've earned a hell of a lot beside. I've a lot to do before I'm through, just watch me as we make our way to a bright new day with excitement in the air. A dream we all can share for older women everywhere. There's a job to be done and a world to build, a goal to be won and a dream fulfilled when womankind designs a new tomorrow. As we make our way to a bright new day, there's excitement in the air. A dream we all can share for older women everywhere. There's a job to be done and a world to build, a goal to be won and a dream fulfilled when womankind designs a new tomorrow.
I'm not going to quote statistics today on domestic violence in Aboriginal women. Hearing high statistics rates again and again often sort of insensitises us to them, and we don't take notice of them. And sometimes the problem is seen to be too great, too big, too hard to handle. So we're rendered helpless to do anything about it sometimes when we hear all these awful statistics. But what I would like to talk to you about today is the good things that can happen. Funding is always an ongoing battle, but we're getting there, and it's by people speaking out and speaking up and not accepting the situation that we do move forward. And so I'm really delighted to see so many people here today. So what are the issues for Koori women, for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women? Like all women, we are also bounded by the same myths that prevail. The stuff around women always asking for it, they deserve it, that we must like it, that perhaps drug and alcohol are a cause. All those myths also impede us as well, but as well as that, on top of that, there's another layer of myths. And these are around issues particular to Aboriginal people. Stuff like, if there's state intervention with my children, what am I going to do about that? So I don't want to do that. And so that binds us somewhat because of that. Shame and secrecy and denial is practiced in the mistaken belief that we're protecting our family and our community by doing that. But we're not. We have to speak up and speak out. There's also the myth about the law, how the law cannot act to protect us. And things are changing, and it's because of us speaking out that those things are changing. And there is the capacity for the law to deal with us as well and help us. There's also the myth that if our men go to jail and we're the cause of it, and if those men die in jail, then we're the cause of that too. But we don't ask to be bashed, we don't ask for the violence. And if the men do the violence, then they have to wear that. So what can be done and what is being done about this? Women in Aboriginal communities are speaking out. Individual women are making a difference. We have a lot of strong people, and it's good to see and know that. We now have at least 3 specific all-Aboriginal refuges throughout the state. And also within all of the refuges there is at least one Aboriginal worker. Having a black face in a wide organisation does make a difference in terms of access for people. And also the organisation that I'm involved with, the Aboriginal Women's Legal Resources Services, has now been, or is in the process of being re-established at the moment. And the rationale about setting up a specific legal service for Aboriginal includes stuff that mainstream services were seen to be not culturally sensitive to Aboriginal women. Although services have been available, Aboriginal women don't access them. Aboriginal women are reluctant to use the service, which has been used against them, especially in terms of their children and removal of children. Overwhelming response by Aboriginal women themselves have stated that they want a Koori-specific service to cater for their particular needs. While Aboriginal people comprise only 2.6% of the population, Aboriginal women comprise 16% of female homicide victims, and all of those have been because of violence. 13% of female prisoners are Aboriginal, and Aboriginal women are over 20 times as likely to be imprisoned as their non-Aboriginal counterparts. The legal system in New South Wales has not made any concessions to Aboriginal culture and values. This is changing. And Aboriginal women are often the forgotten people in terms of services catering to their specific needs. Because of all of these reasons, Aboriginal women throughout the state have been lobbying and trying hard to get services, particularly for Aboriginal women. And in 1995, the Attorney General funded the Aboriginal Women's Legal Service. And we're going to have a launch next month, so if any of you are wanting to come along, that would be lovely to see you there. And it's just one example of, if we have a will, there will be a way to get things done. Thank you very much.
I am very pleased to be here today, not because I am pleased we have domestic violence. I won't live long enough for it to finish. There will always be domestic violence while I'm alive, but it's my hope that we can get hold of these perpetrators and teach them a lesson, to pull them into line and make them fearful of raising their hand against any one of us ever again.
For the sake of yourself, your family and the next victim, find the courage to take action, take back control, seek assistance, report it, and then pursue the right to be safe. Many victims of violence suffer in silence, feeling trapped, isolated, helpless, and maybe even blaming themselves. This silence, misguided guilt, and self-blame prevents many crimes to go unreported. Fear, silence, society's apathy and ignorance with attitudes such as, "She must have deserved it," or provoked it, or protects the wrong person, the offender. There is no excuse for threatening behaviour and intimidation. There is no excuse for violence.
38% of all women over 15 years of age have experienced domestic violence. 20% of those women say that the violence began when they were pregnant. 46% of women said that their children had witnessed the violence. But only 19% of women who were assaulted were able to report that assault to the police.
Let's recognise where the blame and the guilt and the responsibility of violence should fall onto the offender, not the victim. It can be extremely difficult, even dangerous, and also very frightening for a victim to speak out. All the more reason why we all should encourage them by being supportive, caring and protecting. The effects of domestic violence is far-reaching, and it's touching more lives than ever. 1 in every 4 families experience some form of domestic violence, with the remaining 3 families knowing someone or something about it. It has to stop. It's destroying our families and it's killing us.
Today we're here to mark the event of Stop Domestic Violence Day, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak and share some of her history with you. I say her because the movement to stop domestic violence was begun by women, and it is maintained and sustained by women. It concerns women the most because we are the targets of the abuse, so it makes sense that women are the forerunners for change. It's in our collective interest to stop domestic violence. Just like the crime of domestic violence, the movement to stop it knows no boundaries. It includes women from diverse backgrounds, women from diverse politics, cultures and beliefs, and we make no apology for having an agenda. Our mission is to make change. Our mission is to stop domestic violence. It always has been, and on this we are united. When I began working at the Circular Women's Refuge on the Central Coast in 1980, We called domestic violence wife bashing then. The Elsie Action in 1972 inspired and encouraged women all over Australia. Women from church groups, community associations, local councils, social groups, political groups, conscious raising groups, radicals and conservatives set up women's refuges. And their aim was simple. They offered a safe place for women and their kids to sleep, away from the violence. The establishment of the Elsie Women's Refuge became a symbol to women. It told us that we were not alone.
My name is Peggy, and effective sums up how I've been made to feel by my past partners over the last 50 years. Too fat, my man hated fat women. Too dumb. Long silences. What's the use of talking? Got nothing to say. That's right, Judith, I didn't have any black eyes or bruises, but a whole lifetime of personal doubt.
My name is Merle, and I speak of that insidious type of violence too, not physical, but verbal and demeaning, which undermines your self-esteem and well-being, always having to be on guard of the alcoholic partner whose depression swings from high to low. You get around as though you're treading on eggshells all the time, wary of what you say in case it's taken up the long way, extreme feelings of guilt, self-denial and anger.
Well, my name is Lucy. Domestic violence was a part of my life for over 50 years. A disturbed father who threatened to cut our throats as we slept meant many terror-stricken nights. An overly affectionate grandfather with wandering hands. A husband with low self-esteem who answered any threat to his power structure with violence. I was lucky, though left with emotional scars, I survived. The law must be changed and enforced so women and children no longer have to live in a dangerous war zone called home.
I'm Dorothy, and I've buried my domestic violence, and it's only now that I realise how cleverly my husband was able to put me down. I'll give you an example. Kids seated at the table, everybody waiting for their pudding, long wait. My husband lights a cigarette and says, "I hate this waiting between courses." What can you do? And then we had long silences, backs turned as we came home, and months of no speaking. And I reckon that's called violence by silence.
My name's Nina, and I grew up in a home that was outwardly very happy and respectable, but what went on behind closed doors was a very another story completely. I have survived sexual, emotional and physical abuse, and I've spent my life doing that, and I'm very glad that we're all here today and it's coming out in the open.